You don't list a job as remote and then you're saying it's location-based remote. So essentially what they're trying to do is to increase their chances. They make it seem like it's remote and all of these global talents go to apply and then they choose the best. They leave a lot of hearts broken in the process. So there's a lot of disappointment going on in the remote workspace. And hi everyone, my name is Chika and this is Simple Sanskrit. You've probably heard of hybrid work models. Most of us who were not already working in tech before the pandemic didn't even know that it was possible to do our jobs from the comfort of our homes. But the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden, some of these jobs that were not tech jobs could now be done from the comfort of our homes. It now became a possibility. So now that the pandemic is over, a lot of these companies that allowed their staff to work from home, including tech companies, now want their staff to resume working from the office. But the employees are saying, we have tasted freedom. We don't want to go back. So essentially, a hybrid work model was just an arrangement between employers and employees to get employees to start working from the office at least up more than 50% or up to 50% of the time than what is currently obtainable. It's still an ongoing arrangement and there are different models for it depending on your job description and your role. So if you want to read more about the different types of hybrid models, I've written an extensive blog post on my blog, syntaxandscripts.com. You can read more about these topics on the website. I also have breaking into tech stories. So yeah, back to remote work. Let's talk about the arguments against remote work because it seems like it's only the employers that are requesting for people to come back to the office and start working from the office. I know that there have been some arguments for remote work on the side of some of the employees, but we'll get to that later. So the arguments that employers have against remote work is that they're saying, hey, we only allowed you to work from home because of the lockdown due to the pandemic. So why are you finding it difficult to come back and work from the office? We've determined that working from the office increases productivity by a certain percentage. It fosters team bonding, and then it also promotes organizational culture. But then the employees are saying, no, you're missing a point. Yes, some of this might be true, but we are also gaining a lot more in terms of reducing the time we spend on commute, the energy that would have been spent sitting for hours in traffic. We're able to sleep more with the regained time that we have. We're able to sleep more, spend more time with our family, essentially live healthier lives. By being able to cook our meals and we can determine what is going into our body, as well as saving money on the work clothes that we could have been buying if we were to be coming into the office. So you see, there are a lot of benefits to consider for employees. And if you ask me, I know nobody's asking me, but in my opinion, I don't see the sense in asking someone to sit for hours in traffic and come to do a job that they can actually do from home. I mean, some of these jobs, most of these jobs that are requesting for people to come back to the office are things that can be done from behind a screen. There is really no point in asking them to come to the office to do it if you are not thinking of micromanaging the person. But then away from that, it is not as if it's only employees that are gaining from working remotely. Employers also gain because they have been downsizing in the form of commercial real estate. The office spaces that they used to rent have to be downsized. They don't need all of that space anymore. So they've had to reduce costs by renting less space for workspace. The money that could have been spent on office coffee, just running a building, even food, lunch that they pay for some of their staff, and even like things like childcare. I know some of these have been given back to the employees in one form or the other, but costs have been reduced for running a business, a physical business. I don't know why they're not seeing it from this angle. So just to drive their point home, some companies have even gone as far as threatening staff to terminate their contracts. And not just threats, some have been laid off for not agreeing to resume working from the office full time. Some people have agreed to hybrid models, while others just are adamant about the full time part. I'm going somewhere with my story. Based on this power tussle, come back to the office, don't come back to the office, companies are now aware that some employees are willing to let go of lucrative salaries, lucrative jobs, just for the peace of mind and the benefits of being able to work remotely. And just like for every tussle, when two big elephants fight, the grasses always suffer. So there have been winners and losers. And some of the biggest hit losers are um, landlords that offer this commercial real estate for rent. Since companies are now downsizing, the size of their pockets have shrunken. Businesses that support office workers have also suffered a huge blow, like people that sell food, coffee along the road or around office spaces, and people that also offer childcare services. They've had reduced patronage because people are now able to be in their lives, live lives the way human beings are meant to live, not just for work. Oh, of course, some of this can be remedied. I mean, the offices can be repurposed for other things, and these businesses can pivot to start serving other customers. But these things take time. You know, it takes. But down to the main issue for today, I'm going to be talking about the impact of this whole tussle. I was just all of what I was saying was to give you an overview, kind of background on how important remote work has been and the hustle and tussle for it to die. So the impact of all of this is that there's now something called location-based remote as well. It's just essentially tagging a job listing as being remote, while in essence it is location bound. So originally, remote work, the definition of remote work or remote culture was meant to be something that you can do from anywhere in the world. But now, the attachment of having being location based is that if a company is in the UK and they're hiring, they write that it's remote, but it's not fully remote in the sense of being remote. They want you to be not just in the UK, but in an environment that is close to the physical location of their building. So if they tell you to come to work on this day, you can just quickly come and not give an excuse of not being close to the building. So we can see that aside from things in remote work culture changing, the definition of remote itself is changing. And let me bring it to you. Let me bring you to the part of how some of these jobs are listed. We know that in Africa, we've always been disadvantaged on a lot of things. This also includes job listings. Sometimes you see a job is listed as remote for EMEA being Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Most of the times, Africa part of the job listing is silent. And that was before this whole remote work debacle. So now it has even made it worse because some of these location based jobs actually allow for you if you're living on a continent, like if the job is a European job. If it's listed for UK and maybe you live in Ireland or any of the countries on Europe, there's small wiggle room for you to be hired. But once you're not on the continent, nothing for you. So that has meant that the global talent pool that some of these companies can tap into has reduced. It has reduced opportunities for people like us that have finished our IT certification and we're looking for fully remote jobs, in the full sense of fully remote, because we're not in locations where some of these companies are situated. So it has also affected these companies. I don't know, maybe it's something that is, I feel it's something that is intentional because you don't list a job as remote and then you're saying it's location based remote. So essentially, what they're trying to do is to increase their chances. They make it seem like it's remote, and all of these global talents go to apply and then they choose the best. So they've increased their chances and then they leave a lot of hearts broken in the process. So there's a lot of disappointment going on in the remote workspace. And if you have been job hunting for a while, you realize that getting remote jobs, like the full meaning of remote job, is getting more challenging as the days go by. And I don't know if there will be any change in the positive, or it will continue to go downhill from here. So, as a form of wrap up, remote work as we knew it during the pandemic period, the full when remote work was in full effect, is going away. That concept of remote work is going away. The culture is dying away, and what we have now is just hybrid models and things that have a semblance of remote work. But essentially, if you're looking at it from the full meaning of remote work, it's not actually remote work. But the whole concept of being able to work from home is not going to go away anytime soon. I mean, people's eyes have been opened, people have seen the lights. Employees will always opt to work from home when possible. Like, it's now something that is negotiable, it's now on the table. People would always go for ease and comfort where it is offered or where it is readily available. If you're somebody like me who has been struggling to get a remote job, the chances of getting it in internationally listed companies or in um, companies that are not on the continent have continued to dwindle, and our biggest chances are actually looking back to local companies. These companies have, I think some of them have begun to increase their wages and make their salaries a bit competitive. Yes, with the um, they cannot compete with the salaries of the people that are outside of the continent. But then this is what our chances have. In a nutshell, the culture of remote work as we used to know it is dying away, and now we have to deal with the reality of having things that look like the semblance of remote work. I know remote work will continue to change, and the remote work that we know today will not be the remote work that we'll have maybe in 3 years, 5 years from now. So we can only hope that it will favor both employers and employees alike. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.